engraving and printing to prepare prototypes of the note, a $250 bill with President Donald Trump's face on it. And in fact, in August and September, Beach provided Bureau staff with mock-up designs for the note, including one that shows President Donald Trump's face in the center of the $250 bill between the signatures of the president and your signature. It is also reported that the artist who said he designed the mock-up told the Post that he had spoken with Trump about it. Is it true that your staff is pursuing a mock-up of this bill with President Trump's face on it?
That was in coordination with pending legislation in the Congress to change the requirement that a person must be deceased to be on the currency. So
you're acting before legislation has even passed to authorize it, is that correct?
Just as we did with the Working Families Tax Cut, we were prepared in advance. At Treasury, we do things in advance. My predecessors seem to scramble to do things at the last minute.
So if the law does not pass, do you intend to still move forward without the authorization from Congress?
Of course not. We will follow the law.
Thank you. Let me ask you this question with respect to the agreement and the lawsuit settlement that a lot of my colleagues have been talking about, shielding the president, his family, and corporations from any future audits. You are the acting IRS commissioner, correct?
That is incorrect.
What is your position right now with the IRS?
My term expired.
So you have no position with the IRS whatsoever?
The IRS is a bureau that reports to Treasury. When there is no commissioner, those duties float up to me.
All right. So there's no interaction that you have right now or responsibility over the IRS other than the commissioners there? The commissioner has free reign, and you don't have any authority to stop anything?
No, there is no commissioner, so I assume those duties.
So there is no commissioner, so you're acting commissioner?
No, that's incorrect.
Okay, so for purposes of the public, let's get it straight so the public knows your involvement. There is no commissioner. There's somebody that is acting.
I had previously been the acting commissioner.
Okay.
Senator Warren, who likes to send me a lot of letters, was kind enough to send me a letter.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out your role with the IRS. For the purposes of the public and transparency, what is your role currently with the IRS and your authority?
I am performing the duties of the commissioner.
Oh, so you are. Okay, got it. So let me ask you this, because you talked about not only Donald Trump and his family, but there were 400,000 taxpayers' information that was also leaked by Mr. Littlejohn, the contractor working for the IRS. Do you intend to give them the same immunity as President Trump and his family received?
Again, you were not here at the beginning. I had a statement that I read to Chairman Crapo that I am unable to provide any additional details.
Well, that's not part of the litigation.
Due to litigation.
That's the 400,000 taxpayers aren't part of the litigation. You have said there were 400,000 taxpayers' information that was also leaked. They're not part of that litigation. Do you intend to give them the same immunity that you gave Donald Trump and his family and corporations that were part of the litigation?
Senator, you may have missed the first part of this, but Treasury does not give any of that. We are represented by the Justice Department.
That's right. You're the acting commissioner. As acting commissioner, you had said earlier you had concerns about those 400,000 taxpayers whose documents were leaked by an independent contractor with the IRS. If you have concerns about those 400,000, do you intend, as acting or your whatever role it is you have as the IRS commissioner, do you intend to give them the same type of treatment?
Well, we will follow the instructions and the settlement
that was not part of the settlement. That was not part of the settlement. So clearly, let me just say, that was not part of the settlement. It's been very clear you're dodging this, and you're trying to use it as an excuse. It's just outrageous on behalf of the American public.
So let me just move on. And that I will follow the law as an excuse, Senator?
When you were going through your confirmation process, you stated that your goal was to get the federal budget deficit to 3% of GDP by the end of President Trump's term. However, in the administration's budget proposal for this year projects a deficit of over 5% of GDP by 2029. Do you no longer intend to achieve that 3% goal?
I do. I said something with a 3 in front of it. And we, in fact, had a fiscal contraction last year. So we are already in the 5 range.
You said something with a 3 in front of it. All right. I appreciate you being here.
Senator Young. Secretary Bessent, great to have you here today. You and I have discussed shipbuilding in the past and the importance of shipbuilding. I've seen you recently offer your thoughts about the importance of this issue and the importance of rebuilding our shipbuilding enterprise here in the United States. The president has also spoken quite forcefully about the threats associated with.
He couldn't even tell you what his own job is. That's not a gotcha clip. That's the Treasury Secretary of the United States, under oath, contradicting himself about whether he runs the agency, deciding who gets protected from the IRS and who doesn't. If that unsettled you, imagine how unsettled the 400,000 people still waiting for an answer feel. Let's be clear about what "we do things in advance" actually means here, because Bessent said it like it was a compliment to his own competence. It isn't. It's an admission that the Treasury Department spent real time and real staff hours on a $250 bill featuring a sitting president's face before Congress authorized it, and while doing something that is currently illegal under the Federal Reserve Act. Here's the law Bessent is talking around. Under the Act, only a deceased individual's portrait can appear on U.S. currency and securities. That's not an obscure technicality. It's the reason every bill in your wallet right now shows a dead president. To put Trump on a $250 note, Congress would have to repeal that restriction. The vehicle for that is a bill from Rep. Joe Wilson of South Carolina, introduced over a year before this hearing, with no meaningful co-sponsor support. And it has never so much as received a committee hearing. There is no serious legislative path for this bill to become law in the near term. Bessent's own department knows that. They built the mock-up anyway. This isn't a hypothetical either. Reporting from the Washington Post, confirmed by Bessent himself at a White House briefing in May, shows U.S. Treasurer Brandon Beach and advisor Mike Brown pushed staff at the Bureau of Engraving and Printing since early 2025 to prepare prototypes, including one placing Trump's portrait between his own signature and Bessent's. Senators Elizabeth Warren and Jeff Merkley, along with Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer and two other colleagues, have since sent a formal letter to Treasury's Inspector General demanding an investigation into how much taxpayer-funded staff time went into designing currency that would be illegal to print under current law. So when Cortez Masto asks whether Bessent's department is acting before legislation passes, and he answers, "We do things in advance, like it's just good planning." What he's actually describing is a federal agency spending resources on a vanity project for the president in defiance of a 160-year-old law, banking on a bill that has never even gotten a hearing. That's not preparation. That's a bet that nobody would notice. Somebody noticed. Watch what happens next. Because the same "I'm just doing my job efficiently" posture is about to run headfirst into a question about his actual job title, and it does not go well for him. This channel exists to catch moments like this before they get buried under the next news cycle. Every hearing, every budget markup, every exchange where a senator actually does their job and an official actually gets caught, we cut it, we contextualize it, and we put it in front of you without the spin. That only works if you're subscribed. YouTube doesn't show you everything we post. It shows you what the algorithm thinks you'll click, and the algorithm doesn't know accountability content matters unless the numbers tell it so. Subscribing is the single easiest way to make sure you don't miss the next one. It costs nothing, and it takes 3 seconds. Hitting like tells YouTube this moment mattered, that a sitting Treasury Secretary dodging a direct question about equal treatment under the law is worth surfacing to other people scrolling past it right now. And sharing this with one person who still thinks it's just politics as usual is how a 6-minute committee exchange actually reaches the people. It's about the 400 00000 to hear if the rules apply to them the same way they apply to the president's family. Something with a 3 in front of it. Say that sentence out loud. That is the sitting Treasury Secretary of the United States on the record, unable to restate a fiscal promise he made to get confirmed for the job. Here's what that walkback is covering for. During his confirmation process, Bessent told senators he would bring the federal deficit down to 3% of GDP by the end of Trump's term. That was the number, not a range, not a vibe. 3%. The Congressional Budget Office projected in February that the deficit will hit 8% of GDP in fiscal year 2026 alone, and won't drop below 6% at any point over the next decade. The administration's own fiscal 2027 budget, the one Bessent's department produced, projects deficits above 5% of GDP clear through 2029. Debt held by the public has hit 101% of GDP, the highest level since World War II. The federal government is on pace to spend more than $1 trillion on interest payments in 2026 alone, more than the entire discretionary defense budget. By 2036, the CBO projects that interest bill alone will hit $1 trillion. That is the gap between 3% and reality. And when Cortez Masto puts that gap in front of him directly, Bessent doesn't defend the number. He doesn't revise it. He shrinks it down to something with a 3 in front of it and moves on. A Treasury Secretary rounding his own broken promise down to a shrug. Put the whole exchange together and you get a pattern, not 3 isolated moments. A department that builds currency mockups before the law allows them. A commissioner title Bessent can't consistently describe under oath, attached to a settlement that protects the president's family while 400,000 nefs or nobody will give them, and a headline fiscal promise that, when the math doesn't work, gets quietly rounded down to something with a 3 in front of it. None of these are gaffes. Gaffes are accidents. This is what it looks like when the answers keep changing because the truth is inconvenient, and the only reason any of it is on the record at all is because one senator refused to let a vague answer stand. That's the job. That's oversight. And it worked on camera in real time. Subscribe. Like. Share. Because if we don't hold the tape, nobody does.